So you want to be a content creator, YouTuber, model, singer, dancer,
actor, TikToker, OnlyFans owner, own an Etsy shop, makeup artist, nail artist, hair artist,
or all-around boss. What do all of those things have in common? These are all non-traditional career paths, aka freelance, where you're working for yourself. And due to that, you usually have to approach your money management a little bit differently. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Larissa, and I am a model, YouTuber, and content creator. So if you want to be any of those jobs that I already mentioned, or if you already are one of those jobs and you just want to get a little bit better with your money, I'm going to teach you all that I've learned in my years of working for myself, as well as some tips that I've picked up from other amazing individuals along the way. According to Zippia.com, there are over 70 million freelancers in the United States. That number increased by 20% in between 2021 and 2022, and by 2028, there'll be over 90 million freelance workers in the United States. We're living in the future, people. Now, it's time to get smart about your money as a freelancer. We're going to talk about what to do with the money that you make and where to put it. We're also going to talk about taxes. Super fun, I know. And finally, we're going to talk about starting up for a retirement account. So before I go any further in this video, I want to preface it by saying I am not a financial professional. I am just someone who's lived this freelance lifestyle tried and true for a while now. So if you're about to type a mean comment down there, just go do something else with your time. I'm just someone who's lived this lifestyle for a while, and I like to talk about it because as freelancers, we don't have a consistent paycheck that will always come in like clockwork. So you do have to be a little bit better with your money, and if not better, at least just a little more self-aware. All right, so sit tight, grab yourself some coffee or some water or some whatever else, and let's get into it. So, as a freelancer, there's multiple different ways that you can get paid. You can receive checks, you can receive direct deposits, you can receive cash payments, whatever that may be. It's really important when you first start having that money roll in that you eliminate high interest credit card debt. Now, I'll be the first one to say that when you get started in these fields, sometimes it takes a little bit to get the ball rolling, to get a little traction. Like for me, in the modeling industry, when you first start out, you're not booking the biggest of jobs. Well, unless you're some type of prodigy. But for most people, you're not booking the biggest of jobs when you first start out. So that being said, it's sometimes easy to have things like credit card debt creep up on you when you are just trying to, make ends meet sometimes. But holding on to that 15, sometimes 20, sometimes even higher % credit card debt can be a real killer. Basically, it means that a lot of the times you're not even making payments on the credit card debt itself, you're making payments on the interest. So interest can be a real killer. So the first thing that you're going to want to do as a freelancer is to eliminate your high interest credit card debt. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, we're going to talk about savings. Now, for freelancers, it's suggested that you have up to 6 months in a savings account of your monthly expenses. So if you're spending on average $3,000 a month, and that's including your basic necessities, which would be food, payments, rent, car payments, all of that good stuff. So you need at least 6 months of that. It's suggested that you have that in a savings account before you do anything else with your money. For most other people who work in more traditional industries, it's about 3 to 4 months. But I kind of imagine with the current volatility of jobs and everything in the world, it's more consistently about 5 to 6 months for everyone. So for example, if it costs you around $3,000 to live, like I'm not talking living including fancy vacations and the latest and greatest tech gear, I just mean $3,000 for rent, for your bills, and for your food, you're gonna wanna have 6 months of that saved up. So that will put you at $18,000, 3,000 times 6. Since I mentioned savings, let's talk about where you're gonna put those savings. Now, most banks, Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, will all have options for you to have savings accounts with them. And banks entirely give you a little bit of incentive, I guess you could say, in order to keep your savings accounts with them. But those banks aren't really giving you the best deal and the best option here. Those banks typically have a 0.46-ish interest rate on the savings accounts that you hold with them, versus some of these other financial institutions that are still FDIC insured, have larger interest rates that they give you for keeping your money with them. One of those would be like SoFi, Citizens Access Savings, Discovered. As long as they're FDIC insured, they all they're sitting at currently a rate of about 5% interest rate on the money that you keep with them. So if you want to do a little bit of Larissa math here, it's not mental math because I literally have it sitting here on my computer. It's basically at a national average of your Wells Fargo's, your Chase's. If you have a 0.4% savings rate, if you have $10,000 invested, after 1 year, you'll earn about $40 on an interest on that money that you have sitting with them. Compared to some of these other banks, if you have same $10,000 invested, after about 1 year at 5%, you'll have $500. So definitely keep on the lookout and put your money into a long-term high yield savings account. I can link some of those really good options below. Okay, so now we're going to talk about taxes. Now, the biggest thing that you're going to want to know as a freelancer is the fact that you are in charge of paying them. And I don't mean we're all technically in charge of paying for our own taxes, but I mean the difference between a W-2 worker and a W-4 worker, which is what you will most likely be, is that you are responsible for gathering all of your invoices and all of your payments that you've been paid and amalgamating them all together to see that how much you owe on your taxes. It's not as straightforward necessarily in that way. So taxes themselves can be kind of complicated. So unless you're just like somebody who has a background in knowing how to file taxes, or you're someone who just is like really intelligent and has a lot of time and like taught yourself tax code, it could be really beneficial to hire a tax professional, especially once you're getting up there in your career, which I know you all will be doing, where you have multiple different sources of income and lots of write-offs and different things going on like that. For example, I work with a tax lady who has a specialized expertise in knowing how to work with models, actors, content creators, I believe. So there's just like a few slight differences where it can be beneficial to have a professional in your corner. If you want mine, I will link her information in the bio, or you can comment down below asking like, hey, what's up with the tax lady? So generally, it's not as simple as just saying like, okay, if you make this much, you're going to want to put if you make $100,000, you're going to want to put $20,000 aside for taxes. It's generally not that simple, but as a rule, most people will say save anywhere between 20% and honestly 40% of your general income to put away for taxes. Because, in the opposite side, not having enough to cover your taxes would then have consequences, and you might owe the IRS money, and that could be a very long, drawn-out process that you don't want to participate in. Also, you don't really want to get audited on your taxes, which is another reason why having a tax professional could be really helpful, because I've never been audited, knock on wood, but it doesn't seem like a fun process. Also, you are able to pay your taxes quarterly, which is like once a quarter, which I think each quarter is 3 months. So you're able to pay your taxes either quarterly, or you're able to pay your taxes once a year. There are some breaks about doing it quarterly, but I don't really think the breaks are like crazy for like an individual who's not making over a certain threshold amount. But I'm not, like I said, not a tax professional. And you're also going to want to just in general, every single paycheck you get, save a certain percentage of said paycheck, because it will help you down the road when it comes time to give Big Daddy IRS the money that they gonna want, because they're gonna take it one way or the other. So something else that's very, very important to make sure you're doing is to be keeping track of your expenses. Now, for most workers, freelance workers, you really want to think of yourself as a business, in the sense that like you will have things that you can like write off, which means that like they make your taxes owed a little bit lower because you did spend on those expenses that are considered like necessary for your business. Now that ranges between like what freelance industry you're doing. Like obviously if you're like a plumber and
plumbing is what you do on a daily basis, and you get like, you're freelance, you're a plumber, but you won't necessarily need to be like, you won't be able to like write off like makeup in the same way that I would be able to as a model. Like, not all makeup, but like specifically, like if I really, I need concealer because I go into castings and that's like an important purchase for me, or just general care for my instrument, which is me, my body, my face. You wouldn't necessarily be able to write that off. So once again, another reason why having a tax professional is really helpful. And also there's a couple different apps that can help you keep track of those write-offs that make it infinitely easier when it comes time for tax time to know what you have spent over the year on write-offs. Those include Mint. I believe that's a really, really good one. All of these apps maybe have like a couple dollar charge, but at the end of the day, like, what is $1 when it comes to keeping track of all this stuff? Mint has one, Expensify is one, QuickBooks has one, and basically these are all just like apps where you can keep track of what you've spent. Some even link to your bank account so that you can, as soon as it goes out of the bank account, they say, did you use this for your business? Yes, no. So I can keep those, and we'll put those listed down below as well.
Okay, so here you are, a badass financial guru, and you have put away the percentage that you need to for taxes, you have paid off all of your high interest debt, and you have now gotten a 6-month emergency fund put together, and you are like, I am in the clear. I am good. I can do whatever I want to do, right? Kind of wrong. Let's talk about the next step, which would be investing/retirement. So this is another one of those things that's a little bit different and maybe even a little tricky as someone who's a freelancer. Retirement. Whereas the 9-to-5 traditional workers might have a company that's providing for them for their retirement, as a freelancer, you're pretty much on your own. So you want to be as prepared as possible, and you also want to make sure that you're not depending on the government one day or even friends and family to support you in your retirement years. So let's talk about one of the best accounts that you can have, Roth IRA. Roth IRA. Roth IRA. Roth IRA. So there are multiple different types of IRAs out there, but I want to talk to you guys about the Roth IRA. IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. A Roth is a pretty specific, special one because you as an individual can take your money as you have it now and invest that money into the stock market through a Roth IRA account, and then you will be able to take that money out. So you paid taxes on it right now, but you can take that money out at 59 years old, and you are able to get the entirety of that money, including how it's grown in the stock market through compound interest, and put it in your pocket. No taxes taken at 59. Now, that is pretty good considering on average the stock market returns 10% rates of increase a year. So that means that you have a lot of money a small amount that you put in and a larger amount that you take out. Now, there are some rules and restrictions for this type of IRA. For one, you have to make less than $153,000 a year in order to make these contributions to this type of account. There's other ways to do it if you make more, but we're not talking about that right now. And the next one of the restrictions is you can only put around $6,500 into that account as of right now, which is 2023. The number was $6,000 in 2022, but as you can see, the IRS kind of shifts and moves around these restrictions and requirements with time. However, that being said, this is one of the best accounts you can have for yourself as an individual freelance worker, because at the end of the day, you do not have the safety of a 401k and a company giving you a match on that and all these other things. So you really do have to take your retirement into your own hands. Whew. Okay, we've covered a lot at this point, but thank you for sticking in this far. And so the final thing that I want to cover as a freelancer is talking about specifically investing. Now, the retirement account is one thing that you do want to have all on its own, but another category would be investing your money. Obviously, investing in real estate is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You have a certain amount of money, you pay for the place, and then you rent it out to others. Another option is investing in the stock market. Now, this is another option if you don't necessarily have as much capital as would be needed to invest in real estate. The stock market is basically buying a tiny piece of a publicly shared company, Sometimes with like a mutual fund, for example, you're buying a tiny piece of a bunch of different companies, and you receive the benefits of that company's growth over long periods of time, or short periods of time for like day trading and things like that. Also, finally, a bond is basically giving a certain amount of money to the government with an agreement time of paying you back in a certain whatever, 5, 10 years, whatever, and you are gaining interest on that money that you basically loaned to the government. Bonds are considered a little less volatile, whereas like the stock market, obviously, as I'm sure you've heard some words about, the stock market can go up and down, but it generally does over a long period of time have a 10 to 7-ish% yield return. So there's more risky ways to take it, but for the most part, even over lots of years, you will make your money back. I personally am not the most aggressive investor, so I typically will invest in things like the S&P 500, which, as I already mentioned, is really just like an amalgamation of all of the like country's top 500 performing companies, which is a good option. There's plenty of educators out there who can give you better details, who are more informed than I am to talk about the stock market, but I just wanted to give you guys some base level details about what you can do for your investments as a freelancer. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, these are the most basic tips about finance that every freelancer should know. We're not trying to gatekeep anymore. We want everyone to be knowledgeable and intelligent about how they spend their money. Please like and subscribe. There are links down below to everything that I talked about, including some articles and some other ladies in finance who are really intelligent and trailblazing.